I'm Gwen, Preston of Resource Maven. We're here at the Metals Investor Forum in Toronto at the beginning of March, and I'm joined by Paul Cowley of First Vanadium. Thanks for coming to the show.
Gwen, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's set the stage. Vanadium. We've been talking a lot in this area about gold and about copper, but let's set the stage by talking about vanadium a bit. One of the best performing commodities out there in 2018 had this crazy price run in October, November that has now corrected quite a bit. So let's talk about that pricing a little bit. What happened, why that happened, and how we've settled back to a more sustained climb.
Right. So it's all about demand over supply right now. And through 2018, that demand was exceeding and outstripping supply in a very steady way. So the price was increasing naturally from those elements. It was all leading up to this fall date of this Chinese legislation that was really impactful.
Absolutely.
And has the potential of adding a lot more demand. This is a legislation that requires Chinese rebar manufacturers to put in 30% more vanadium in the rebar to make it safer, because they were putting out inferior steel into buildings and bridges. So there was, in September, October, it ramped up way too fast, and it wasn't sustainable. So it's only natural there's going to be a pullback. And then it pulls back to normal demand and supply and demand aspects, which is what has happened right now. So mid-January, it basically stabilized and stopped dropping, and has tracked for the last month and a half in a very nice, steady, slow, methodical trajectory. So now we're at $17.60 a pound, and it's looking like a continuous, slow increase, which just reflects that extra demand over supply.
Absolutely.
So 2019 looks like it's going to be another really good year for vanadium. But not crazy. Not crazy
like we had last year,
That's
but
right.
just a good year for vanadium.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's a nice setting.
Yeah. And when you have that good setting, that good price trajectory, slowly and steadily gaining, that is the foundation for bringing interest into a sector. But vanadium's a pretty interesting sector, I think, as an investor, because it has more appeal than most metal-only sort of stories, because most vanadium primarily goes into steel, but there's also vanadium redox flow batteries, so it's got an energy metals component. It's also been declared a strategic mineral in the United States, so there's sort of a political influence to it. So it's an interesting space in terms of the investment drivers.
Yeah, and people are getting more and more known about the vanadium because of that price increase. There's more articles that are being written about all these aspects that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really good space to be working in. The battery side, very small at this point, but it's been commercialized finally over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It's a small amount of consumption of vanadium in globally and annually, but obviously it's taking a foot.
Yeah.
And that'll only ramp up. China is starting to build all these plants now, megawatts, like hundreds of megawatts of power, using these new batteries that are using vanadium, and that's only going to take further and further, or add more and more demand on top of what steel is already needing and demanding.
Absolutely, yeah. And so let's talk a little bit, of course, about First Vanadium and the project that you're working on. You just updated the resource there, and the numbers improved in very nice ways, and you see more opportunity there. Yeah,
we're really excited. After 15 months of having this project, we did 2 drill campaigns, infilled, expanded the deposit. We took a historic inferred resource that was quite substantial, and increased it delivered 80% indicated. We increased the tonnage by 15%, increased the grade by 20%, added 30% more metal in the deposit, with basically a $1 million in spending on drilling, because this is very shallow. The average drill hole is 70 meters deep.
Right, it's amazing.
It's very, very inexpensive to prove up something like this.
Yeah.
Which makes it really exciting. We can do more drilling, because this deposit is still open-ended, and very inexpensively add more.
Add yet more value. And of course, bringing lots of those resources up into indicated status sets you up in good stead for going forward, because a bunch of the focus this year, in addition to growing the resource further, is wrapping an initial mine plan around this to demonstrate the value that could be derived by building a mine.
Yeah, the metallurgy and then moving it to an economic study.
An economic study.
This year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
exciting times for us. Yeah.
Pardon me?
Exciting times for us.
It absolutely is exciting times.
Yeah. And unlocking that value that people still haven't recognized, because the vanadium is this unknown, hasn't been truly valued yet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
These more niche metals are difficult to understand, but can provide really great opportunity when you understand them enough and see the moment happening and then get on board. And I think that's where we are. So you're well set up for that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for the interview, Gwen.
Absolutely. Best
My
of luck.
pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.